Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Spice. Today we are at the next topic, that is we are going to discuss case of standard exchange sacrifice. I have made some videos long back about this and we can treat it as a continuation, and I am trying to show you how to choose sharp openings which can lead us to these kind of positions. So I am taking my own game example and then I will show you some analysis made by strong grandmasters also, and we will discuss what is the line all about. So it's a French Tarrasch, and let's see quickly what is it all about. E4, E6, D4, D5 and D2, so called the Tarrasch variation championed by Dr. Siegbert Tarrasch. The idea is simple. Knight supports the pawn, and on C3 what happens? If the knight is on C3, the bishop can pin from B4. Okay, so now BB4 will be just met by C3. So that is the point. But here what happens? The C1 bishop is stuck for some time and black tries to use it to gain some initiative. There are three lines here, NF6, DE and C5 will go into NF6, E5, Knight D7, BD3 and C5. Black needs to break this white center. So general strategy is very simple. We should always attack the base of the pawn chain first. White controls with C3, black attacks, and white has two ways to play. If knight Gf3 is played, then after QB6 this D4 pawn has to be sacrificed. That's called the Korchinoi gambit. Otherwise white plays Ne2. The Korchinoi gambit is a great choice for white, by the way. Now the difference is that after CD QB6 there will be NF3 and D4 will be well protected. Here black should play the move CD first, which is almost necessary, especially if he is looking to play the F6 line. Now what happens? It is absolutely necessary to play EF, because holding the position by F4 will be really bad, because see F takes E, F takes E, then knight D4 and QH4 check. Regaining the knight on D4, E5 will be weak and it's a quite weak position for white. So after F6, EF6 is necessary. Knight takes F6. Now knight F3 castle, both are similar. BD6 castle, and a very important moment for black. He has to choose between three lines. There is castle, there is QC7 and there is QB6. I often play QC7 or castle. My main choice is castle. After castle, if opponent does BG5, then I go with the move QC7. So that way I should know some details of QC7 line as well. The main purpose of QC7 is to stop bishop F4. On the other hand, here we are allowing bishop F4. See, white wants to trade his somewhat bad bishop for this active black bishop, and he is looking for a positional play here with bishop F4. And what black will do? Black will try to challenge that with some positional sacrifice or very active play. Here comes the good move, knight E4. First point, if bishop takes E4, of course DE, one of the knight falls. Now white has four lines actually. Queen C1 used to be one of the main lines. There is knight E2, there is knight H5 and there is the move G3. Knight E2 is another very important move. After knight E2, now see black has various ways here, but he should look to instantly break the position. There is no time for slow moves like BD7, because white can always play BB5, take this knight and plant this F3 knight to E5, and even this knight can move. Okay, so what will happen? This bishop will be really stuck. So instantly black goes rook F3. It's a positional sacrifice. After G takes F3, queen G5 leads to nothing. Let's look at BE4 first. After BE4, DE4, G takes F3, E takes F3. Now see, we will get the second pawn. Already we got one pawn for the exchange. After knight moves, we get D4 as well. And then you can see queen has some splendid squares. QD5, BD7, rook F8. One game continued this way. Rook E1, QD5, king H1, stopping any two checks. BD7, RE4 attacking the knight, E5, and then see, as soon as queen moves to E1 to pressurize E5, black had seen knight E2. Great move. Knight takes E2 allows Q E4. And if Q B4, because threat was knight G3 followed by taking the rook, so queen supports and black has the good move bishop H3. See, threat is bishop G2 mate, and you can figure out there is some serious problem here. After knight E2, Fe2, this E4 rook is pinned. So it's a serious trouble for white. So let's go back to the main position. That is why white should play the move gf3 here. After gf3, knight g5, and here too there are several lines. White often goes f4. f4 happens to be one of the main moves, and there is the very important game kh1. I'll show you some part of this. There is a very famous game Kramnik versus Sulibin, and in that we see that black should always go e5 before nf3. Instant nf3 allows bh7, qd3 and taking on f3. So first e5, d, now nf3, bh7, king h8. The point is that after knight g1 there is the deadly knight d4. If knight e5 then blunder. After knight f3, bg4, knight e5, knight f7 check, and the black queen also hangs. But here see, after knight f3 there is bg4, and see d4 cannot be taken because bf3 followed by qg5 mates. So black is looking winning here, but he is not. White has to play d4. But at lower level, white will not like these kind of positions. So it's a very good choice for black. My opponent played f4 here, to which see earlier I used to play the move nf3. But this game is from the time when I had stopped playing serious chess and I chose to play slower line because I forgot most of the theory. All I knew was see nf3, kg2, qh4, king f3, queen h3, ng3, e5. This is very sharp. This is what I still remember, and I knew then also. The point is that if ke3, then there will be ef check, and see now the threat is bg4. But I also knew that there is a lot of theory in this, and if the opponent has come prepared, maybe the opponent knows. So I decided to reject this line during the game. My opponent's rating was around 1960, and the opponent looked a bit prepared as well. So I went NH3 here. Now if king h1, then still comes see qh4, f2 hangs. So after qd2 you can see there is nf2 check, kg1, and see you can pressurize d4 after bd7, rook e1, queen f6. Now the e2 knight cannot move, and after king h1, rook f8. Again see we are using a great plan, bishop e8. That is why the rook first went to f8. See after rook c1, b8, the bishop will join from g6 to e4 or bishop h5 and chop the knight on e2 and get the second pawn. Once black gets the second pawn, he will have superb play. For one pawn also, he is doing decently good. White king is not that safe. And here another option was to go queen e1 to protect f2, then to nf4, nf4, qf4, qe3, and queen takes d4. This position is also see slightly better for white, but you see there are two pawns for the exchange. If white misses the move f4 here, then he is in for a big trouble. One of my opponent played arrayed e1 and I played e5, protected the knight on d4, and see next comes bg4. Black e1 becomes better there. f4, bd7, rook e1, rook f8, and if rook c1, then we do bc6. We will stop enemy's entry into the position, and see then g6, king f7, nf5, allowing the trade bf5 will also be decent, and two pawns for exchange is as it is not at all worse for black. I will try to cover other lines also in which there are multiple exchange sacrifice. This whole setup or the system involves lot of exchange sacrifice. As a whole, you will see in French defense there are many active exchange sacrifices. You can check out this playlist also. I have made some other lessons also in which there are other lines of standard exchange sacrifices from the French defense itself. There is previous lesson is also same of this Tarrasch variation only. So opponent went kg2, I went qh4, f3. Here also see qe1 was possible, but now see there are some problems. Here qe1 loses to qg4 check, knight g3, and then see queen knight f4 followed by knight takes d3, bishop goes for free. So opponent went f3, stopped qg4 check, but I take and see now d4 will be won. I'll get the second pawn. Opponent would have played qc2, then I thought of nd4, bh7, kh8, queen is attacked, and after queen move we have the strong move e5. Black has two ideas as you can see. One is the threat qh4, attacking h7 and bishop h3 check when the skewer would be there. And the second plan is to just play bishop f5 and f5. When see ne3 is a massive threat, the d pawn is a passed pawn, so there is just good play for the exchange. Opponent went queen e1, I did qd4, qc3. Opponent wants trade of queens. I thought it's good to avoid trade of queens now because still white king is not safe. I went queen f4, qc1 again attacks the queen, queen goes to h4, and now maybe qe1 is an option. To qe1, qh6 I would have played, and after f4 stopping e5, still there is e5 because of the threat of bh3. Black looks better. So my opponent went f4, again trying to stop e5, but unfortunately see still e5, again threat is bh3, king h1, and here I missed a simpler point actually. I could have just played bh3 because see there is no rook f3. Okay, rook f3 is worse, maybe there is direct nd4 stronger than e4. I must have thought that there is e4 which is similar after b4 d like the game. But after rook g1, this qf4 gives the third pawn. So I think we can say that this position is much better than what I chose. I went for the move e4. Still black is better, but I think I lost major part of my initiative. The pawns were really strong. So now it is two pieces for rook. I go bh3, rook f3, rook f8. Want to pressurize f4. Bishop moves back to f5. Queen e3, queen f6. Now rook wants to get doubled there. Knight b4, knight is heading to d3. Rook g3, knight d3, rook g2. Now see small threat on g7. If I do g6, then rg6 and d3 falls. So I just do g6, and my opponent here blundered with rook d2. Actually white's play has dried up after g6, and black has lot of his own plans. See, black has the move rook c8 here, queen c6 here, so multiple ideas are there. It's black to play and win. Do try to calculate from here. There is C, queen c6 check, kg1, queen c1 check, kg2, and the small tactical move bishop e4. If queen takes e4, then qd2, it's winning. So this kind of small tactics settles the tactical battle, we can say. King h3, and here I saw the very simple queen c8 check, and it's game over. Time to resign basically after, let's say, king h4. There is just rook takes f4 check, and maybe he has to give up queen f4, otherwise there is some more queen checks, and it's a winning position of course. So my opponent resigned over here. Do let me know how you found this lesson in the comments below. Thanks for your time.